I wonder who. Do we know that? We're just getting started, right? I just want to ask. We had a question here that has like 3 questions. And first starts off, please tell us your thoughts on keeping social. Is that yours? Can I ask you a couple carefully? I will, as I take questions, I'll reword them sometimes, and get them to mesh with some other ones. That's all. So I just wanted to check with you on this one. This one, they'll typically candidates will say, well, sure, I'm for social workers.
Right.
How do you feel about, if I change that question to, how do you feel your thoughts on social workers versus hiring a police officer on campus?
I thought about that. Yeah, that's right.
Because that is the latest controversy. Do you prefer a police officer or whatever?
Right.
Because they'll definitely say they'll fund it, or their
That's
priority,
true. Yep.
if that's okay. And then how do you plan to show leadership? That sounds wonderful. And then how long have you been since you've been teaching in the classroom? Can I ask them to share their experience, both teaching and administration?
Yes.
Or do you like this better? 'Cause I'll do it that
I
way.
like both, but I think I want to know what my question is has it been 10 years since they taught in the classroom, which
Okay.
times have changed drastically? Has it been they taught for 1 year and then they moved into admin, which I think also changes dynamics? So I think I'm looking
About,
at
can you give us your experience for the past 10 years as a classroom teacher versus whatever we've been doing? Does that sound right?
Yep.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
It is picking up? Super.
Do I need a mic to do my introduction?
Yep. You can use mine if you want. Yes.
Okay, so what I can do is testing. I can give it to Casey, and Casey, you can give this to the candidate.
Yes, if I don't forget like I did that last time.
I'll try to help you. We all have to help Mr. George remember to give this to the candidate so the people at home can hear. So if you see he didn't do it, just go like this. You know. Okay, great. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Kim Guerin. I'm the superintendent of the Madison School District. So excited to be here tonight. I know it's really tough that we stole Miss O'Brien to come help us at district office, but you know how wonderful she is, so that's no surprise. But we are really excited. We have 3 incredible candidates for you tonight. And if you ask anyone that served on the school committee today, you'll see that it's there. We're just so pleased of the caliber of candidates we can bring to you. Candidates have gone through quite a rigorous process to be here. We had over 70 applicants for our elementary principal openings. We paper screen, then we send out a timed written assessment that is a significant amount of writing in a short amount of time. So it really, we get a sense of what the candidate thinks about certain topics and their writing style. From there, we pick candidates to interview at the cabinet level. And from there, that's like the 3rd round. Then we send them to both a committee interview process that happened this afternoon that included parents, district office staff, and Camelview staff. So they will provide feedback. And in tandem with that, we ask that you will provide feedback tonight. And Mr. George will explain how that works for both in person and at home. So to get to this finals, all the candidates are highly qualified. We would not let any candidate make it this far that we did not think could be a stellar principal in the Madison School District. So right now it's about fit. You know your school the best, so we want you to think about your school, your program, who can help move you forward into the future. So all aspects of the process will be taken into consideration.
Pamphlet?
We will make
I
a
do want a
decision
pamphlet.
rather quickly because we would like to bring the candidate's name for approval to the governing board next Tuesday. So quick turnaround on that. So I am going to turn it over to Mr. George to begin. Again, we have 3 candidates, 30 minutes each. They'll be interviewing separately. Okay. Mr. George?
Yes, thank you. Give that to the candidate. Welcome. Again, I'm Casey George. Happy to be here. They allow me to host these events, which I enjoy doing. You had a pamphlet passed out to you at the beginning. There's a QR code on there, so you can use your own at the end. After seeing both candidates, you can just use the QR code to provide your feedback. Just make sure you do it by midnight tonight, because it'll close off, okay? Now, if you're at home or live streaming wherever you're at, should be a little link at the bottom of the video screen. Is that correct, IT? All right. So a little link, you click on that little link, and it will take you to a place where you can provide feedback on both candidates, all right? 3 candidates. There's 3 candidates tonight or 2? 3 candidates tonight. All right, 3 candidates tonight. So you can provide feedback on all 3 candidates tonight. Let's see, before we call our first person, we have feedback that we can, so the questions, did everyone get an opportunity to get a blank question sheet? If you'd like to have a question, even in the middle as we're doing it, just raise your hand and an associate of mine will come and get that for you and bring it to the front, okay? So feel free if you have a question. I will combine the questions if they're very similar, and I might reword them a little bit here and there and such. I try to be consistent with all 3 candidates, okay? Perfect. Okay. And do we have our first candidate? Okay. So let's see here. So I'd like to welcome our first candidate, Miss Justine Richardson. Okay, Justine, thank you for coming. We're going to give you the first 2 or 3 minutes to just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself to the audience, okay? But you guys didn't you were ready to remind me, weren't you? You get to wear this little clip.
Super. I'm already out of breath all the time, so this will help a little bit.
Okay, feel free to roam. So you're live streaming here, and there's your audience. So the first 2-3 minutes belong to you to kind of introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for introducing me, Mr. George. I see some familiar faces here, but if you don't know me, my name is Justine Richardson. I am the proud assistant principal here at Camelview currently. Before moving to Arizona, I am originally from Michigan, and while in Michigan, I attended Central Michigan University for my undergrad. When I was about to graduate from Central Michigan University, I actually came to Arizona to attend the Arizona State Job Fair. And while I was at the Arizona State Job Fair, I was introduced to an amazing community of the Madison employees. And they had nothing but wonderful things to say about working and being a part of this community. And so I knew that that was something that I really wanted to be a part of. And so I interviewed and applied to be a teacher here, and I actually got a position here at Camelview teaching 4th grade. And so they took a chance on me, and I was a first-year teacher, and I was so grateful to be here. Throughout my teaching career, I knew I wanted to extend myself more into the educational field. And so I went right back to college as soon as I could to get my master's in educational leadership from Arizona State University. And actually, right when I was graduating from Arizona State, an opportunity arose here at Camelview. The assistant principal position was changing to an administrative teacher on assignment position. And they're synonymous with one another, but it was just a different title. And so I applied for that, interviewed, and was granted that position. And so I have been the assistant principal here now for 5 years. And just through my experience in the Madison district, specifically within leadership here, I have just become very passionate and involved in our community here at Camelview. And so it's just a great honor to be here to be able to interview for the principal position.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Your first question, think 5 years out. What is your vision for Madison Camelview, and how do you plan to execute that vision?
Sure. So as many of you, well, all of you probably know, our school is a STEAM school. And so first and foremost, or not first and foremost, but that's one thing that I would really like to focus on in terms of the vision of our school. And so building that program and expanding upon what we've already laid and the bones that we've laid is really important. I was actually here when STEAM became our signature program, so I've been a part of that entire journey. And currently we have multiple clubs after school, such as like dance club, cooking club, Lego robotics, to really extend that program beyond the 7:15 to 2:30 bell. And so keeping that program alive in terms of extending clubs as well, building upon that. Next year, actually, we just had a meeting yesterday to develop our Cubberosity or our STEAM lab or STEAM room. And we're excited because next year our kids will be able to experience STEAM in a different way, and they'll be able to push into that room and experience different STEAM activities. And so that's another way that we're embodying STEAM. And I think something that would be really fantastic for Camelview is if we could become STEAM accredited. We are currently an A+ school, which is an amazing honor, but I would like to extend that to being STEAM accredited. So schools within the Valley can come to our school as an exemplar school when they're in their first years of being STEAM. Another goal for Camelview is to expand our special education program to be more inclusive. Currently, we have 2 self-contained classrooms, and that will continue for next year. But something that's really exciting is that next year we got funding to have 2 additional resource teachers here. And so by doing that, we can change our model from providing SDI, which is when children are more so pulled out for resource support. Next year, we'll be able to have our resource teachers push in. And so this is what's best for our kids, and it will provide more opportunities for them to grow and be in the general education setting. And so I want to be able to provide those opportunities for our kids. And so this year we're working on our master schedule to allow for that, to allow for our special education students to not only receive resource support, but to also be able to receive support during MTSS or various tiers so that they can have interventions elsewhere. We're working on getting professional development, not only for the staff, but for myself, so that we can build on this inclusion program. And so I'm just excited about that, so that, 5 years down the road, like Mr. George said, we will also be a campus that's looked to, that has a really solid special education program.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Super. Please tell us your thoughts on social workers versus having an SRO police officer. So social and wellness is very important to us, but so is safety. If you had to prioritize, would you prioritize social workers or an SRO officer, police officer on campus?
I would definitely prioritize our social workers. There's many reasons. Our school, I'm looking at the crowd, and I know many of you have walked through our school, and we recently went through a remodel to allow for the front office to be safer for our campus. By providing that, we now have a single point of entry for our kiddos and for our community. So they can't get in, no one can get into our school on any other doors. And also we have the Raptor system to help field people when they come onto our campus. And so I feel by implementing those two procedures for our campus, it has created a safer environment. And so I don't believe an SRO would be able to offer the same resources that our social workers have offered. Currently, we have 2 social workers. I know some Madison campuses have a social worker and a counselor, but we are very blessed to have 2 extremely talented women working here as our social workers. They are not only a resource for our students, but they're a resource for our parents. They are resources for our teachers. And they're able to support us with our MTSS or our multi-tiered systems of support model in supporting our students in the tiers. Sorry, I keep making a triangle with my hand, but when we're thinking about supporting our students, we have students who receive support in all areas for positive reinforcement through Tier 1, and that's amazing. But when that's not going to work for all students, and so sometimes we need a little extra help. And so when students move into Tier 2 for behavior support, they might enter a group with our social workers to attend small groups to work on a skill set that they might be lagging in. And then even beyond that, if they enter into tier 3, they could have one-on-one services with our social workers. Beyond just supporting the groups, they've pushed into support with whole class lessons, and they just enhance the culture of our campus. And so if I had to prioritize one or the other, I would prioritize our social workers over an SRO.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
From social workers to teachers, with the immense challenges teachers face, how do you plan to show leadership to your teaching staff?
Can you just repeat that one more
Yes,
time? I'm sorry.
happy to do so.
Thanks.
With the immense challenges teachers face, how do you plan to show leadership to your teaching staff?
So I think education as a whole is a challenging job to get into, no matter what year, no matter if it's pre-COVID or post-COVID. So you have to have a big heart to be in education, and we all have that working here at Camelview. But to be a good leader for our staff, I would want to lead by example. And so something that I pride myself on is I would never expect our staff to do anything that I would not do myself. And so being out at duty is something as simple as that. Being in their classrooms, supporting with challenging behaviors, walking around the campus, leading by example is really important to me. Another concept as well as servant leadership. And so what can I do as an administrator to support not only the growth of our staff, but the growth of our kids and the growth of our parents. So being present and being available and being a listening ear and supporting them is extremely important to me as well, because it will support them both in their personal growth and their professional growth. Can you repeat it just one more time? I just want to make sure I
With the
understood.
immense challenges teachers face, how do you plan to show leadership to your teaching staff?
Yeah, I think those are the two biggest qualities that I would say. And also, you know, one thing that's really wonderful about Camelview is it's a very open door policy. So if there's something challenging happening on campus, I want to be a part of the solution, and I want to solve it as quickly as possible. And so our staff feels very comfortable coming to administration when they have challenges, and we can work collaboratively together to solve that. So being a leader to me is important to empower our staff and to help them understand that I'm here for them and we can, you know, get through the most challenging of days.
Along those same lines, how long has it been since you've been a full-time teacher in the classroom?
5 years.
Thank you. How can you best support the families and students in our community?
The families and students, you said?
Correct. How can you
Okay.
best support the families and students in our community?
Sure. So our families and our students are like the bread and butter of our campus. They make the days like worth it. When you're having the most challenging days, you can always like pop into a classroom, see a group of kiddos, and you kind of remember your why. Why did you get into this? So how can I support them? Our community is wonderful, and we're really working on our parent involvement and bringing our community back onto campus. And so this is something that we struggled with like any other school during COVID, but this year has been amazing in getting our families back to campus. We had a food truck event. We had over 350 parents show up. We got them involved, and being able to see face-to-face and get to know them a little bit better has been wonderful. And just being present and learning more about them, you can see what they need. Just today, actually, I was covering the front office, and a parent came in, and she was in Mexico for a while because her mother was ill. And at that time, you can say, what can we do for you? What do you need from us, for your family, for your child, to feel that they're okay and feel that they're supported? And so being present for our community. For our kids as well, being in the classroom and being present for them, knowing that I care about them and I know who they are. That's something I pride myself in, is I know a very large amount of our kids' names. I know their siblings. I know, embarrassingly, some of them are in high school at this point, but I know a lot of them, and I know their parents. So to be able to tell the kids that I care for them and I know something about them, even if it's small, shows them that they at least have one trusted adult at school. And that's really important for our community.
Okay, thank you. This next question, what restorative practices would you use with students and teachers when they've made unhelpful choices? Their words. So.
Okay, one more time.
Sure.
Yeah.
What restorative practices would you use with students and teachers when they have made unhelpful choices?
Sure. So I think that question's kind of twofold because it's two approaches. So for students, something that I'll start with what Madison has done. Madison a few years ago has changed the disciplinary matrix in the district from just focusing on consequences to focusing on restorative practices. So children make mistakes, it's going to happen, and it's typically a form of communication. They're trying to tell you something, but they're just not doing it in the way that we really would like them to. And so the disciplinary matrix has changed from just being consequences to pairing a consequence or a response is what we call it with an intervention. So, I don't know, you took something from someone that doesn't belong to you. Okay, that's not the best choice. Let's have an intervention so that we don't do that again. We want to be able to support them in that fashion. One piece of that is also these peer-to-peer mediations, and we do these regularly, and it has been just invaluable to our kids, because when they do peer-to-peer mediations, they are able to convey to someone else why what they did upset them, and then vice versa, and it's been amazing. So the disciplinary matrix by Madison has been great, and we've been able to implement that here at Camelview, and we've seen huge results. Also, with that, we've developed a MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support, again, B, which is for behaviors. So when we have kiddos who are not making the best or unhelpful, I think is the word, unhelpful choices, we have a lot of supports in place to help them make the right choices. So we have PBIS here, the Positive Behavior Intervention System, where we're giving out dojo points, Cubs tickets, kids are able to award one another with kindness beads, Student of the Month, the list goes on, and that's for all kids. But then we know that there's about 5% of our kiddos that does not reach, so then we can kind of use tier 2, which is what I talked about with our social workers as well. They might go to social skills group with our social workers. They might, we would involve the parents at that point and show that child that, hey, we're a team here and we're here for you. We're here to support you. And then we can also, if that doesn't work, we might move them into tier 3, which is one-on-one services with our social worker. We would involve our behavior technicians to kind of come in and take a look and say, we think we're doing everything right, but can you give us some feedback on this and help support us? And so for restorative practices, Camelview does a great job of not focusing on being punitive with our kids, but helping them learn from their behavior so that they can make a better choice next time. With teachers, I think obviously that's a very different approach than what I just described for a child, but with a teacher, I think meeting with them one-on-one and hearing their version of events, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about what happened here? Why did we make that decision? And having a similar approach in that, let's try to make amends and make it right the next time. So if it's an incident with a teacher having a challenge with a student, we can still do those mediations with a teacher and a student. We can facilitate those and help bridge that relationship. And so sitting down with teachers one-on-one and hearing their side of the story as well to help figure out how we can solve and make a solution is really important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question. Like all schools in the state of Arizona, Madison Camelview will have a school improvement plan. What specific things would you do to increase student achievement significantly in both math and reading?
So that process actually happens over the summer, and so it starts in May. And so when it happens in May, we'll take a look at our data to determine where are our biggest challenges. And that process is really wonderful because it's very, very collaborative with all of our grade level teams and all of our content areas. And so we spend 3 days together taking a really deep dive into our data to determine where are our biggest challenges. I don't have an exact answer for what we would target specifically within math and reading yet, because we don't have all of our data back, but I do know that we received some data regarding our special education model here and how we can better support our special education students. And I discussed that earlier in one of my questions, but next year changing from a model of pull out to a model of push in is going to give our students better access to the curriculum, better access to their IEP goals, and to become more successful within those areas. So that's for sure going to be one of our content areas that we're focusing on. And then also within reading, we are going through, myself, the current administrator, and then 2 of our teachers here are going through a very intensive training to support our reading block. We know that there's shifts in what's best practice to support our kids. And so next year, we are within our reading goal for our SIAP or our strategic plan, we're going to be changing how we teach reading to the kids so that we can reach more of them. So a lot of the shifts are going to move from comprehension in our younger grades to more phonological awareness, teaching them how to read, teaching them how to understand the words. So changing a lot of the minutes within reading is going to be crucial in supporting them. Within math, next year we are also going to continue our practice of providing Tier 2 support within the classroom, and then also having our interventionist support with math as well. And so while I haven't seen the data yet to determine like where in math and where in reading we are struggling the most, we know that we have to reconstruct our reading block, and we know that we need to continue offering Tier 2 and Tier 3 support in math.
Thank you. Social and emotional wellness is part of the district strategic plan. What specific metrics would you use to measure whether or not your school is having a positive effect on students with their social and emotional wellness?
So within our social and emotional wellness, we have a few resources at our disposal here already in Madison. One of them being our DESA screener. Our DESA is given to the students 3 times a year. And so the teachers give that at the beginning of the year, right around the holidays, and then at the conclusion of the year. And the goal is to see that children are making growth within that screener. So if they are scoring as high risk in the fall, what interventions are we going to put in place in the middle of the year so that at the end of the year we can see some of that SEL or social and emotional growth? That's like very data or metric driven. Those are numbers on a screen, but within the 4 walls of the community, or within like what we do here as well, another big indicator to see if our students are learning and the interventions that we're providing is to see a decrease in discipline data, or so that our kiddos are making better choices. So when we see an increase in behavior data, that's telling us something's not right here, we might need to make a change. And so each month I meet with our PBIS team, or our positive behavior intervention support team, and we analyze all of that data. And we really take a really close look at what time of day are the kids struggling, where are they struggling, and what is the behavior that they're exhibiting, and how can we tackle that. Then when we come back the next month, we are hoping that by putting all of those interventions in place, we see a change in behavior. And so that's something that we can do monthly, is take a peek at that PBIS data to see if we're seeing growth. Another way that we monitor student SEL is talking to them. And so asking kids, do you have a trusted adult at school? Are you happy here? What can we do to make your experience here better? So talking to them, getting to know them, and seeing the growth in kiddos is amazing as well.
Thank you. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. How would you monitor student progress in both science and engineering?
So currently we're actually working really closely with our science coach in the district, because we have realized that we need to kind of revamp our science block a little bit to include the metrics for science. And so that is a plan that we're working on to support our kiddos for next year within the sciences. Right now we've combined the science minutes to be on Wednesdays, so that the kids can really engage in a very authentic engineering process. And so seeing kids grow from week to week to week within that engineering process is something that we're able to do to determine if they're making growth within the sciences. We don't take a state assessment for science here at Camelview. Our kids are too young, so we don't have that data to pinpoint, but what we do have are our science lessons within the weeks. We also have our coding teacher here as well, who provides coding to the kids either once every 4 days or once every 5 days, depending on their grade level. And so we're able to determine if the kiddos are making growth within coding. So are they ready for Park, which is our sister school? Are they going to be in advanced coding when they get to Park? Are they going to be in advanced science classes when they get to Park? That is a huge indicator for us, and we collaborate with Park to determine if we're on track to meet those benchmarks.
Thank you. How would you deal with a conflict between a parent and a teacher who both feel they're at an impasse?
It's unfortunate, obviously, when these types of things happen, but the first thing is when a parent brings a concern to administration at Camelview, what we first do is we just ask that parent, have you spoken to that teacher? Have you talked to that teacher yet? If the answer is no, then we encourage them to do that first. At the end of the day, like, we're all people and they're adults, and so we try to encourage them to facilitate that conversation first. If that doesn't happen, or it did happen and they're still at an impasse, I have, and the other current administrator has met with the teacher and has met with the parent to support them in coming to an agreement. And so what is it that was the challenge from the parent's perspective or the teacher's perspective, and how can we collaborate together to come to an agreement? And so really listening to both sides of the story or both sides of the argument to determine how we can best support them is what we have done here.
Super, thank you. And thank you for coming this evening. We greatly appreciate you. We're going to give you the last 2 to 3 minutes for a closing of your choosing.
Okay, sounds good. Well, as I had mentioned earlier, being a part of the Madison community is my passion, and it's my why. It's why I come to work every day, is to be a part of this community. Getting to know the families, getting to know our kids, getting to know their brothers and sisters and their parents, knowing our wonderful staff and knowing their loved ones as well. I'm very passionate about the growth of our community and ensuring that they feel supported. On the other side of that token, the Madison School District has poured an immense amount of resources into me as well, whether it be professional learning or taking a chance on me as a teacher, taking a chance on me as a first-year assistant principal. They have poured so much into me, and I want to be able to pour back into them and be the principal at Madison Camelview, which is a place that I have called home for the past 8 years.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I'm going to get that microphone from you.
Oh, I realized I was probably blocking it.
And you can still add a few more questions. We got some good questions here, but you can add more if you want to write another question. I'll see if I can't put it in. Okay, and now I'd like to introduce Miss Kelly Perry. Miss Perry, come on down. No, you're good. You put it anywhere you want. And I do have a microphone for you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Miss Perry, thank you so much for being here. We're going to give you the first 2 to 3 minutes to introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight and giving me the opportunity to come before you and really tell you about who I am and share my educational story with you. But I do want to start off by explaining a little bit about how I came to be where I am standing right now. So I'd like to take you to 40 years ago. I know that's a long time, but 40 years ago I was a 10-year-old little girl in Levine, Arizona. And if you don't know this, Levine used to be a farm town with just fields and farms, and we lived out in Levine, and we were surrounded by families and farms. And one day, a mother came up to our community, or up to our home, and knocked on the door and asked my mom in Spanish if her daughter, which would be me, would be willing to tutor her daughter who was 6, who couldn't speak English. And my mom asked me, and she said, she'd like you to tutor. What do you think? And I was 10 years old. So I thought that was fantastic. I was like, yes. I didn't even know I was going to get paid. And I ended up getting paid $5 a week. And so for the next year, I ended up tutoring Nadia. And that actually started my informal career with education. And so I wanted to share that with you because I think back to who I am as a person and the longevity of my career and how important a childhood experience like that can be for a child. And these children are here today in our classrooms, and who knows what kinds of experiences they may have that may put them on a similar path. So in terms of my formal education or my formal experience, I'm a 20-year veteran educator in the state of Arizona. I came to the Madison School District in 2014. Prior to that, I was a classroom teacher. I had taught first grade and third grade, and I was a campus literacy specialist. And I pride myself in saying that I was in the classroom longer than I've been an administrator. But with that being said, I take you to 2014. I came to the Madison School District, and I became the self-contained Reach gifted teacher at Madison Heights. And as you know, Madison Heights has two programs. It has the Reach program, and then it also has the Spanish Immersion program. So I was lucky enough to be on a campus with 2 signature programs. In 2014, I started my true learning about everything Madison. I took a crash course that year on learning all about the instructional practices, the excellence, the high expectations. I did a lot of training on project-based learning since I was in the Reach gifted classroom. That was the expectation. I also did a lot of Kagan strategy training. So for the next 3 summers, I did all of the Kagan strategy summer institutes. So I loved my time in the classroom at Madison Heights. In 2016, I was asked to apply for the TOA position and started my leadership journey at that time. So in 2016 to 2018, I helped lead Madison Heights and I was so happy. It was an amazing experience. And with that being said, another opportunity presented itself. I knew in 2018 that an instructional leadership opportunity presented itself in the Scottsdale Unified School District. It was at a Title I school. It was a K-8 Title I school, and I felt my heart just being pulled in that direction. I also knew that that school at the time was teetering on a D label. It was 63%, and at the time people were saying, "What are you doing? Are you crazy? Why do you want to go to an almost D school?" But there was something inside of me that said, I really feel like I can help and make a difference. And so in 2018, I took a leap of faith, I took a risk, and I joined the Scottsdale South Scottsdale community at Tonalea K-8 as an instructional specialist. In that year, our team came together. We had an amazing English language development coach, and we had a data coach. We all came together and we really put together a plan for movement in terms of academic achievement for that school. And I'm happy to say at the end of that year, we saw the needle move with student achievement. We actually moved 5 percentile points in 1 year from a 63 to a 68%. We were so close to becoming a B, and in only 1 year we did that as a team. And that was so inspiring and motivating, and I'm so grateful that I was a part of that plan. I can tell you now that school just earned a B label. So the work was started with that 2018 team and continued to grow on all of that collaborative work and the systems that I believe that our team put into place in 2018. In 2019, the Coronado Complex and the Scottsdale Unified School District merged 2 schools. An opportunity came to be where I could continue my leadership story, so I accepted a position as the assistant principal of 2 schools. Both Yavapai and Hohokam Elementary School were merged at that time during that year. And they were merged for 2 different reasons. First reason, Hohokam was going through a whole school rebuild. So just imagine Camelview packing up and moving over to Rose Lane. It was a big upset in the community, but in order to build and rebuild the entire school, the campus had to go somewhere. So they went to Yavapai. Yavapai was a D school. This created a lot of conflict within the community, and people were very upset. It was a very unsettling situation. However, with our team in place, with amazing teachers, with a strong leadership team, we were able to unify 2 campuses over a period of 3 years. As we started this unification process between the 2 schools, the pandemic happened. So that was just another variable that got put into play in terms of my story. And I'm happy to say, after 3 years of being in that situation, merging 2 schools, unifying 2 schools, we have a great end of the story. Hohokam is back on its beautiful campus, continuing to thrive and be a highly performing school. Yavapai ended up going from a D to an A. And so I say that because the campuses with strong campus culture and strong teachers and strong leadership, we were able to, I say, create a wonderful story in that scenario. In terms of my leadership and the experiences that I have, I am a McCrell Balanced Leadership trained administrator. I have experience with restorative justice and thinking maps, and our school that I'm currently leading right now is an AVID school, so I have AVID leadership training as well. In regard to my personal story, I am a mother, and I am a mother of 2 adult children. I am going to have been married 30 years in May, and I am proud to say that I am now a Nana. I'm a grandmother of a 1-year-old. And so I just come to you as a wholehearted person, a wholehearted leader, and I'm very, very excited to be able to share my story and anything else you'd like to know about me in terms of leadership.
Thank you. With your experience, think 5 years out. What is your vision for Madison Camelview, and how do you plan to execute that vision?
Thank you for that question. I did ask the interview panel today the same question because I'm very curious about what you all want for Camelview. As stakeholders, you all have a voice, and I think it's important that we know what the community wants and what the community vision is. So I would, as a leader, I would first bring together those voices in an organized way to get input into finding out what are the aspirations and dreams of and hopes of the community members. And then in partnership with the district, I would come up with a working plan. And we would look at all of the options that are achievable within that 5 years. I do know some of the feedback that I got today in the interview was that you all want Camelview to go to the next level. You want Camelview to aspire to be that STEAM school. And with that being said, there are certain designations and accreditations that can be sought after. And that is a process that, if that's what the community wants, we would work through that together. So again, back to what is my vision? My vision would be your vision, and it would be the vision of the district working collaboratively together.
Thank you. With social and emotional goals and safety being a concern for all, what is your thoughts on having social workers versus an SRO police officer on campus? Which would you prioritize?
Oh my goodness. That to me is a very easy answer. Absolutely. We have a social worker this year. This is our second year of securing the funding through the ESSER grant, and she has done an incredible job. I value our SROs. We do work in partnership with the Scottsdale Police Department, and they are very, very helpful and supportive when we need them. However, we need our social workers every day, all through the day, and I would do whatever it took to keep our social workers a priority. Social and emotional learning is a district strategic goal and plan. It's not something that we can not follow through with. Our social workers are critical in helping meet the needs of our students. Social workers have experience and training that teachers don't have. Teachers are expected to do so much with so little. A social worker brings in a different perspective. They have the training that it takes, especially trauma-informed practices, to support those students in a way that allows the teachers to continue to teach. So the question is, which would I prefer? Absolutely, social workers. Absolutely.
Thank you. With the support of teachers in mind, with the immense challenges teachers face, how do you plan to show leadership to your teaching staff?
So how do I show leadership? I think the number one way a leader shows leadership is being present, being visible. Well, there's more than one answer, I believe. There's many ways. So one way that you can show leadership is being present and being visible. That's each and every day, showing up, checking in with teachers, checking in with kids, building those relationships, knowing student names, knowing everybody's name on campus, and really being accessible to all of your community. That's one way, and that's being consistent, visible and being consistent. Another way that you can support your teachers is by honoring and listening to the needs of the teachers, and specifically within grade levels and PLCs, attending those meetings, listening, understanding what they're asking for, and being able to, when you can, deliver what is needed to help teachers feel validated and heard and part of the process.
Thank you. With that also, the follow-up question with that is, how long has it been since you were a full-time teacher in the classroom?
Well, I was a full-time teacher 2014 to 2016. So I have been in leadership since 2016. So you're asking me to do math right now?
It's okay.
Okay.
I think we got it. We can do it.
But I wasn't, my heart was absolutely in the classroom from 2000 to 2014. So.
Thank you. How can you best support the families and students in our community?
I think the first thing I would need to do is to really get to know the community and understand what the community needs are. And that requires being available to listen and being open to understanding what the needs are for everybody. The needs of families sometimes vary. The needs of our teachers vary. So learning about the needs of the community and understanding where teachers are with their minds and their hearts is going to be very, very important. And I think being responsive to those needs. It's one thing to listen, but it's another thing to follow through. And I can tell you one of the things that I pride myself on is being consistent. And so with that being said, I think people need to see that. Actions speak louder than words. It's one thing to be friendly, but it's another thing to be friendly and to follow through with the commitment that you make to your community.
Thank you. What restorative practices would you use with students and staff who have made unhelpful choices?
Students and staff. Well, there's two different paths for that. So for students, I always approach student interactions, especially around behavior, as a skill that needs to be taught. Students don't always come to us every day with the skills we'd like them to have to be able to interact with one another. And we call that a skill deficit sometimes. And so when a student is having a bad day, making bad choices, or just has consistently problematic behavior, the mindset is always of, what is this behavior telling me? Behavior is communication. And so when you go into a situation with a student, a discipline issue, my heart is always on what's going on today. And you would be surprised on what they tell you. Sometimes it's, my dad went to jail last night. Sometimes it's, I didn't have any clean clothes to wear today. Sometimes it's, I got here late because my tia always is late and I don't know if I'm going to get breakfast when I come. So all of these variables play into who these kids are when they show up to us. It's important to listen. And if something has happened with that student, the idea is how can we fix this? How can we solve this problem? So with me, I always ask students the questions to guide their behavior. So if something's happening and they're being disruptive, I ask questions. What is the expectation? If they can tell me what the expectation is, I know that I can get them to go through and talk about, what are we going to do about that? How are we going to help you be able to get to a place where you can learn and grow? So putting it back into that child's heart and mind and giving them the power to make decisions, that's a restorative angle that you would take with the student. With an adult, it's a little bit different. An adult, you have a different level of conversation, and it usually starts with, tell me what's going on, right? Open up the door, asking the staff member, tell me what's happening here, help me understand, and really listening, because if you are open, people will tell you similar things. I found out my dad has cancer. My son is suspended, and I just can't think. There are stories behind everybody's situation, and the important thing is to be able to let people tell their stories and then together come up with a solution. That's a restorative practice.
Thank you. Like all schools in the state of Arizona, Madison Camelview will have a school improvement plan. What specific things would you do to increase student achievement significantly in both math and reading?
Okay, thank you for that question. Madison has an incredible system in place, and it's called the School Continuous Improvement Plan. And this is where the schools come together in the summertime, and they go through the prior year's data, and they look at all kinds of different data. And they look at behavior, and they look at state tests, and then they look at, it used to be NWEA, we use FastBridge in Scottsdale. They look at this data, and they basically create a story about the school. What happened with the school with math? What happened with the school in ELA? And they really go through it systematically to create an understanding of where the needs are. So my plan as a leader is to follow that system that's in place and to create that collaborative opportunity for staff members to come in, go through the data together as a team, look at the opportunities for growth. And then what we would do is we would brainstorm specific ways to be able to meet those goals around those two academic areas. The key to this, it's called the SKIP, School Continuous Improvement Plan, is that it's always something that you go back to throughout the school year. You look at your progress, you look at your data, you share this with the team. This is living data, it shows everybody, here were the goals we set as a community, and here is how we're doing as we progress through the school year. It's a collaborative and it's a collective process. So the specifics around improving the data actually goes back to the team, back to the teachers who have the most influence on how to put those strategies into play.
Thank you. Social and emotional wellness is part of the district strategic plan. What specific metrics would you use to measure whether or not your school is having a positive effect on students with their social and emotional wellness?
There are a number of ways you can capture this data. There are rubrics, which are scales that you can actually create as a school. You may already have them, I don't know, but using a rubric that is developed at the school, understanding what those measurements look like, and giving that rubric to either the teachers to complete for each student, or you can have a kid-friendly version of this same rubric and the students can complete this rubric. You can do this in the beginning of the year, you can do this in the middle of the year, and at the end of the year. You can share this rubric with students so they can see what their goals might be. It does help them understand their level of social emotional learning as well. It helps generate that social awareness piece. So rubrics are one way that you can actually collect that data. There are formal instruments that can be used as well. I know your district has adopted a curriculum. I believe it's called Ruler. I don't know a lot about it yet, but there are usually instruments that are suggested when you do have an adopted curriculum to use that as well. There are just a number of ways you can do that. It really just depends on what the site would like to do and what the district is recommending.
Thank you. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. How would you monitor student progress in both science and engineering?
Okay. Again, there are lots of ways you can measure progress, and it depends on what curricula you have adopted, because with that being said, some of the curricula has built-in measurements. I know with science, we have 5th grade at our school, so 5th grade actually takes the AZ Sci. We don't have 5th grade here at Camelview, so it's a little bit tricky. So what I would think that would be a way to measure science is that teams need to come up with common formative assessments. We call them CFAs, and you take the standard and you develop formative assessments throughout the school year. So the school is going to be developing these, the grade level develops their CFAs, and then you also create you could create a portfolio, and with the portfolio, your science team would go through and there would be checks and indicators on levels of achievement based on the standards that you've selected to measure. So again, if there isn't an adopted curricula and you're developing this as a site, you would also need to develop those instruments of measure. And then what was the second part of that question?
How would you monitor student progress in both science and engineering?
Engineering ties in. It's a STEAM school, so it's not standalone. Everything is integrated. So when you look at these projects and you look at these performance indicators, you would really need to think about that as you developed your assessment. And I cannot say enough about collaborative team building around those assessments. It's really important that the grade level looks at that. And then of course you have a science coach here in the district as well. I would think that the science coach would help guide this process since it's a STEAM school.
Okay. Thank you. How would you deal with a conflict between a parent and a teacher who both feel they are at an impasse?
Okay, this does happen sometimes. The number one thing that I think about in terms of supporting teachers and families is that they both have something in common, and that's the betterment of the child. They both want the same things, and sometimes communication gets in the way of really looking at what is the best outcome for that child. So for me, I generally speak to all parties first. I speak to the parent, I listen take notes, let them know that I'm going to follow up. I then speak to the teacher, listen, take notes, tell the teacher, I'm going to follow up. This is what this family or this parent is saying. And then I also bring in the student. I want to know what the student's perspective is. I ask the student, what is going on? Is there a problem? What is the problem? How can we solve this problem? So after I get all of this information, I like to analyze it and think, what's truly going on here? Because sometimes it truly is a miscommunication and the whole incident has been exaggerated or blown up. Or sometimes it's not, and it really does need somebody to get in and really say, listen, here's what the teacher is trying to accomplish. This is the teacher's goal, and be that voice for the teacher. And then also with the teacher, here's where the parent is coming from. So using that communication strategy where you're really just sharing what the other person's intent is and really looking at what's the best solution for all generally ends up working out. It generally works out.
Thank you. All schools want better academic achievement as well as safe schools. Specifically, what do you see is the biggest challenge of a STEAM elementary school?
So in terms of safety, number one, that is on everybody's mind right now. I think, just to be completely honest, families are worried and concerned. And I think we have a responsibility to address that and be open and honest and transparent about all of the safety precautions that we have. That also means we have to be diligent as well and ensuring that our campuses are safe, that we are doing the proper things, such as doing our campus walks, making sure visitors all have their badges on and tags, making sure doors are not propped, and really making sure that our protocols are being practiced and that we're all in the mindset of we know what to do when something happens. So that being said, with safety and a STEAM school, safety is just an issue, period, regardless of if you're at a STEAM school or not. The challenges that I think that could happen at a STEAM school, outside of the just regular safety concerns that families have, is that I believe that our attendance right now and our enrollment is a concern in terms of public education. I feel like we need to be really vigilant and we need to go out and work for every student that's enrolled in our public schools. Without attendance, without students, we're not going to be able to continue our STEAM program. So I think we really need to understand what these problems are. And I do know that attendance and enrollment are a pressing issue that are on the top of all of our public schools. We're losing students to competitive schools, so we need to continue to build our programs and really create those environments that students and families do feel safe about and children want to come to school in each and every day.
Yes, I'd like to thank you for coming this evening. We
Thank
greatly
you.
appreciate you. We're going to give you the last 2 to 3 minutes for a closing.
Okay, thank you very much. So, thank you very much once again for allowing me the opportunity to come before you as a potential candidate. I know I have big shoes to fill. Mrs. O'Brien has done an incredible job for the last 10 years, and it would be my honor to continue to work with her in a collaborative way if I were to be selected as your next principal. I want you to know, as a leader, I am dedicated and I am committed to being a servant leader for you here at Camelview. I am the kind of leader that comes to school every day wanting to make change in a positive way for students so that they can learn and grow. I want to spread kindness. I want to model positivity and enthusiasm around learning. I specifically want to come to Camelview because Camelview is an inclusive campus. The STEAM program is changing the world. And I say that because statistics are showing that 17% of all STEAM jobs are only filled by, excuse me, I'm going to say this a different way. Only 17% of STEAM jobs are filled by minority, Mexican, Black, Hispanic, Latinos. 15% of engineers are women. This is not acceptable. Camelview is trying to change the world by daring to change that statistic. I want to be at a school that is daring. I want to be at a school when SEL is being taken off the table. I want to be at a school where it's the center of what we do, because we can't do anything without our students feeling safe and happy and ready to learn. So with that being said, I'm going to share with you that I play many roles in my family. I'm a mother, I am a wife, I'm a sister, but the roles that mean the most to me are Mama Bear and Nana Bear. And those mean a lot to me because I take that mindset into my daily role as a principal. You have to be ready to be fierce and to be vigilant and to protect and to fight for your cubs, because you are the one in the end that is responsible for a safe school, a happy school, a highly effective school. And I want you to know that if you chose me as your leader, I would continue to be that Mama Bear and that Nana Bear for each and every one of my students. I would bring my wholehearted self to you at Camelview. And I just wanted you to know that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm going to grab that microphone from you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we're already ready. Okay, I'd like to introduce our next candidate. We have a third candidate. You guys aren't going to leave, are you? We have a third candidate. Just stretching your legs. That is perfectly acceptable to stretch your legs. I want to introduce you to Mr. Curtis Smith. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for coming. Greatly appreciate it. We have several questions here from the community. We're going to give the first 2 to 3 minutes to you just to introduce yourself.
Okay, do I need a microphone? Or?
Oh, yes, you do. See, you guys did not remind me. You were about to. All right, so you're just going to put that on your lapel or whatever. There you go. All right, and there is an online audience right there as well. And this is your community, and you get the first 2 to 3 minutes to talk about yourself and introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Curtis Smith. My family and friends call me CJ, so you're welcome to go either way. I am a lifelong educator. I am in my 32nd year in public district education, and I learned in Arizona there is a difference between public education and public district education, because where I came from in Washington State, there were no charter schools when I left, so it was the districts only. So over my 32 years, I've had the opportunity to be a general education teacher in the primary grades. I was in a multi-age school that was engaging in Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences. So looking at how do we overlay our important curriculum in a framework that helps connect learning for kids. I moved from that position into a gifted ed position. I taught gifted ed in the primary grades for a number of years. And then I was a new teacher mentor, a assistant principal, and then I spent the next 20 years as a principal. This is my 20th year as a principal, which is amazing. And I think the thing that I really appreciate the most about it, and I shared this today in one of the interviews I had earlier, I get to be a principal. There are many, many people that go to work every day because they have to. I love working with kids, I love working with teachers, and I love working with parents. So that's how I am here today. That's a little bit of my background.
All right, thank you. All right, our first question. Think 5 years out, what is your vision for Madison Camelview, and how do you plan to execute that vision?
I think it's going to start, first of all, getting to know my community. When you're looking at the community and a school that already has achieved much success, looking at a school with a STEAM initiative, and you have a community that already is in existence, and you have a staff that's already working hard to support our school. So what I would need to do is find out where we are on this journey and work with the staff and the community to envision what's next. So that would sort of be where it starts, and then from there, grow that over the next 5 years. When I look at STEAM learning and STEAM integration, there is a great resource that I've used out of the SMT Learning Institute in North Carolina. That really is all based on a continuum. And so you can look at where you are in the journey, but part of that's also knowing how far do you want to go on the journey. Because when you get to that highest level, it is fully 100% STEAM integration. And that may be not what's best for our community in the journey as far as providing for our students. So part of it's looking at that framework, looking at the needs of our community, and then building out that 5-year plan.
Right, thank you. So with social goals, a concern for the community, and obviously safety being a concern, please tell us what your priority would be if you had to pick between social workers versus having an SRO police officer on campus.
This is something I just wrestled with. I am currently a principal of K-8 school, and at our school, we actually have a social worker that was funded out of the state safety grant in the first rounds. So that is a secured position. The state currently has now put out additional funding that is in a different bucket of money, where we're looking at social worker or SRO. And we're still trying to figure out if you already have this and you get this grant, you lose this. So part of that conversation is what is the greatest need in our system. And I think where it all starts really is around the social worker side, which is the social emotional learning. How do we develop human beings that are able to problem solve, interact with peers in a way that is successful so that they all feel they are valued, known, cared for, and part of the greater community. So that's a piece I just couldn't give up because I believe that's absolutely where it starts. But I understand the social work, the SRO side. Our community right now, as you look around the country, there's fear. And in my world, it's not a this or this, it's and, as long as we can, we need it. So I don't know if I can pick one or the other than in the position I was in and I had to choose based on funding source, social workers where I landed because I know being proactive in building those skills is where we need to start.
Thank you. With the immense challenges teachers face, how do you plan to show leadership to your teaching staff?
Much like the SEL component, it starts with relationships. From day one, it's going to be interacting with as many staff members as well as community members as possible. It's the same thing as we come around our communities. Build those relationships, and then get in there and work the work with them. And I think that is really key. When you're looking at leadership on a campus, you have to have a team that you've developed where you're part of the team. You have to have a co-owned mission, vision, as values so that you can build out that plan and then work the plan together. And as you're looking at needs, and when you're thinking about the variety of, how do I say this? So getting into so I cover classrooms. We saw a need as we're going into state testing in 3rd grade where we need some small group support. On my calendar, every Wednesday and every Thursday was small group support in our 3rd grade math classes. I was working a small group because if I'm going to ask my teachers to get in there and do their very best and show how much they care and love for our kids and want them to be successful, I need to do the same thing. And the other piece of that, of course, is making sure that we are building capacity to teachers through professional development. The other part is making sure that if you have a resource need, figuring out how to plug it, because we are in this together. It's 100% teachers and administrator as a team working alongside our parents to help our kids be successful.
Thank you. So with that, follow-up question is, how long has it been since you were a full-time teacher in the classroom?
20 years. 22 years, actually. I taught for 10 years, as I shared early on, and I was started in 3rd grade. Then I was a multi-age 7, 8, 9-year-old classroom. That school was really interesting. We were a Title I school, and it was a time where the former Soviet Union was going through some significant struggles and falling, and we had a huge influx of students that came from the former Soviet Union into our classrooms. So I had 36 kids in my classroom, and I very quickly learned that just because they're coming from the former Soviet Union doesn't mean they're not bringing challenges with them. Because I had kids who were from Georgia, I had kids up from Ukraine, I had kids up from Russia, and they had a common language, but the countries didn't like each other. So looking at and beginning to develop and understand that, and create a community in our classroom. So I had 10 years, from there I moved into gifted ed, and then from at that point, it's really been pushing in and supporting what's happening in classrooms. I've been in kindergarten classrooms doing small group reading groups. I've been junior high doing math groups. I've been in middle grades, and typically I end up going to math groups, but kindergarten was always reading. And I felt like an octopus, by the way. Kindergarten teachers are amazing because literally, as you're trying to get them to track, you are doing this because by the time you get this kiddo on task, this child's already off.
Thank you. This next parent question, how can you best support the families and students in our community?
Listen and learn. Work with a social worker and the current staff to find out what the needs are. So listen, learn, and find out what we already know about our community. And when you discover there's a need, figure out how to solve it. I know that no matter what community we work in, our parents have to be a critical partner in that work. And so whether it's connecting with them at drop-off, at pickup, at the local grocery store, or at some of our events on campus, you have to learn your community. And then once you know your community, then it's been reaching out and working with social workers in the system, other community partners to fill those needs.
Thank you. What restorative practices would you use with students and staff that have made unhelpful choices?
And it's interesting, restorative practices, and you have the broad, full-on range of, we actually have restorative practices on our campus, and we have restorative circles, and we've gone through all that training. But really where it starts is helping the individual reflect, own their behavior, be able to plan for a better choice, and then make amends or resolve or fix the problem that happened in the first place. And whether or not that's a more structured activity like restorative circles, or it really is through conversation and dialogue, in the end it's, I caused a problem that either hurt someone else's feelings or caused a problem for someone else. How do I make it right on my journey of learning to be a good human being?
Thank you. Like all schools in the state of Arizona, Madison Camelview will have a school improvement plan. What specific things would you do to increase student achievement significantly in both math and reading?
Well, we have this vehicle at this school called STEAM Learning. And what is STEAM Learning? STEAM Learning is a vehicle to connect to kids' passions and help them apply. And so when you're looking at foundational skills, let's get in there and work really hard on making sure our students have good phonemic awareness, and phonics, and numeracy skills, and writing skills. But immediately, let's do something with it. And once students begin to see that their learning happens here but applies here, you see joy, you see kids being excited about learning, and then you find opportunities to celebrate that learning. Beyond that, when you're looking at really truly a plan, as a Title I school, we have the comprehensive needs assessment that you go through with your staff and your community, and you identify based on these best practices where your needs are. You narrow it down to a focus, and then from there you develop your integrated action plan, and then from there you run the plan. And in a way, as we continue to work in with our students, it's sort of an action research cycle. We see a need, we believe this is how we're going to resolve it, we work that, and we look at a result, and as we move forward, we refine that and continue growing. So it really is a continuous model.
Thank you. Social and emotional wellness is part of the district strategic plan. What specific metrics would you use to measure whether or not your school is having a positive effect on students with their social and emotional wellness?
Well, at the finalist interview today, I learned about Ruler. So I was back looking at the Castle research on Ruler, and as a framework or approach to supporting emotional learning, it's really going to come down to, are we seeing an increase in students being able to self-regulate? Are we seeing an increase in students being able to effectively problem solve? Are we seeing a decrease in students getting referrals or having disciplinary issues? Those are, some are soft metrics, some are more measurable numerical metrics, but it's going to come down to, are we seeing that change in our students over time?
STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. How would you monitor student progress in both science and engineering?
I think where I go with it, you have the foundational skills themselves, which all of them tend to be pretty measurable. But if I can't apply them, then we're missing the boat when we're looking at STEAM integration. So I'd be looking primarily at the application side, which most likely is going to come down to some sort of rubric in the application. One thing I know when you're looking at assessing students in a project-based or problem-based activity is the rubric has to be known by the students. And I know as a classroom teacher, more often than not, I develop rubrics with my students. So as we have been learning about, and I was in the Pacific Northwest for most of my career, learning about volcanoes. So we have Mount St. Helens right up the road, and we can see ash plumes coming out of the volcano. Now we're going to be looking at what's causing the volcano to happen. This is part of our science content. And we're going to then begin developing the questions we're interested in. And then we're going to go from there to doing some research, and then we're going to then create a report or a project to demonstrate that learning. That rubric is designed so that as we have the final product, we go back to assess where did we land in the area of the engineering design process, where did we land within the application of our science contest, our content.
Thank you. How would you deal with a conflict between a parent and a teacher who both feel that they're at an impasse? That's a fun one.
It's interesting because more often than not, it's communication. And so it's, even sitting and facilitating a conversation like that is really starting with listening and getting a good insight about what is the struggle from, typically I start with the parent side, to be honest, and then making sure that I'm asking clarifying questions so we're actually working the right problem. Because often that's where the conflict happens, is we're not really understanding what the issue is. And then from the parent side, or from the teacher side, then seeking to understand, given this problem that we haven't clarified here, is there anything that we're missing within the problem? And then what would be a resolution that works for teacher, works for parent? Now, reality is there's going to be times where, as long as a teacher has acted absolutely professional in their decision making and they followed all district's regulations and policies, there might be a time where we have to basically agree to disagree because the teacher has acted in the way they needed to, in a manner they needed to. But more often than not, I think very, very rarely have I not ended up with a win-win where we walk away feeling that the teacher was heard, the parent was heard, and the situation was resolved.
Thank you for that. All schools want better academic achievement as well as safe schools. So beyond those two, specifically, what do you see as the biggest challenge of a STEAM elementary school?
I think when you're looking at STEAM, it really comes down to how are we effectively integrating the curriculum into the STEAM learning. And so when you look at all the state standards and how much has to be covered, it's giving ourselves some grace to go back to, all right, we know that foundationally these are the skills that absolutely have to be taught, so our essential standards. Then from there, when we're looking at STEAM, the intent of STEAM to me, the most important part of that is the application of learning so that students create their own meaning and understanding. And I don't care really what the actual signature program is. It's how do we connect the kids' passion and how do we help them make meaning of their learning. So when you're looking at that kind of that balance, the challenge is how do we take all of this and put it within the STEAM framework so that our students are actually understanding and applying the learning. A couple of ways I've done that in working with staff is each quarter we create integrated curriculum maps. And so we've identified what the most essential standards are, we get them down on paper. Then we look at some overarching themes or connections that could result in a problem-based or project-based demonstration of learning at the end, so that we have done honor to all the content we have to cover and ensured that our students have understood at a deeper level what they're learning and how it actually applies to the world.
Please describe a time you were in charge of an initiative. How did it go and what did you learn from it?
Let's see, over this time period, let's see, I think I'll go back to my current setting. So the school I'm at currently is a signature STEAM school for the district I'm in. It went through a couple of iterations. It was a neighborhood school that became a school within a school, and then that program within the school was dissolved and STEAM was good for all. And so that's what I kind of inherited. A school that had already had an identity and now was something different. We still kept our STEAM moniker, so that's who we are. We're Signature STEAM School. So we went back to, at that point, what is our mission and vision of our school? What does STEAM mean? And by the way, we started as a STEM school, and we went through this whole collaborative process looking deeply at, well, why would we even consider going from STEM to STEAM? What does that A give to us? And so, can you re-ask the question? I apologize.
Yes. Please describe a time you were in charge of an initiative. How did it go, and what did you learn?
Perfect. So, so transitioning from STEAM to STEM and taking on this school that was changing from a school within a school to really a whole school STEAM process. So it really is a multi-year plan. And the other piece of it is working collaboratively with my teachers and my school community to make sure that we are headed down the same vision. And then when looking at some of those quick wins, so one of the things as a signature program and being a STEAM school, we went with, and by the way, I'm in a K-8 school, what are some things we can put in place right now that will communicate to the community that we are different than a general neighborhood school? And so we brought on board Project Lead the Way, Gateway to Technology, as one of our elective choices. And if you're familiar at all with Project Lead the Way, they have Project Lead the Way launch with the littles, Gateways to the middle grades, and then they have their high school program also. But it is absolutely aligned to standards and it's STEM applications. So we brought on right away flight to space, we brought on automation and robotics, we have brought on design and modeling, so that there were some pretty quick wins that the kids and the community could see. Moms and dads could Google Project Lead the Way launch, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. That's different than what we've done before. So those short wins, as well as that long-term planning, I think is really critical, and keep coming back to what did we say we were going to do? What's our mission? What's our vision? How are we going to measure that success? And then, all right, where are we on that continuum? Where do we go next? So it's sort of a plan, move forward, reflect, plan, move forward, reflect.
Thank you. On behalf of the district, I'd like to thank you for coming this evening. We greatly appreciate you doing that. We're going to give the last 2 to 3 minutes for a closing.
Great, thank you. I have to honestly say, as a 32-year teacher, administrator, I have been so impressed with the system. I had my first interview at your district office, and I walked in and I was warmly welcomed by the receptionist at the front desk. I sat and I visited with our superintendent as well as a couple other leaders in the district. And what I felt right away was a system that absolutely is living and cares about the whole child. And that's really important to me. When you're looking at the world we live in right now, and some of the pushback we're getting, that it's easy to move into a mode of fear and not stand bold and brave on what we really care about. And we know that if we're going to grow good human beings, we're going to grow them academically, and we're also going to grow them socially, and we need to grow them emotionally, because we've got to have little ones who can regulate and problem solve and collaborate and be able to navigate the world they live in while learning and applying that knowledge. And so that's something I've been just really impressed with. And today I sat with a group of staff here at this school, and the exact same feeling came forward. The culture of this school, and what I'm seeing the culture of this district, is something that I see as outstanding and absolutely aligned with values I have. And so I would be honored to be a part of this community.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to remind you how you can provide feedback. Also, you're going to be allowed to interact with the candidates. We're going to bring all 3 candidates out, and so feel free to talk and ask a more specific question, or to say hello, or shake their hands if you like. So feel free to come on up. I do want to remind you, on your little pamphlet there, you have the little QR code, so you give your feedback on all 3 candidates. And if you're streaming online, there's that little, what did you say it was?
The bottom is like a
at the
switch.
bottom, you can
Yeah.
click. It's a link. So if you just click on the little bottom of the video, you can provide your feedback. Please do so by when? See, I was testing them, but you knew that answer. That's okay. That's all right. So by midnight tonight, because it does close. And I thank you again for coming this evening. We greatly appreciate your input. All right. And I think we have one more candidate, and then feel free. You guys can come up now if you like. Feel free. Come on up. Oh, yes, thank you. Are those?
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's your name?